Mojuba, ago, eleka, mojuba, ago, yeah.
There.
We come here today to honor the original patrons, the original Praline man, the original coffee vendors, the street vendors of New Orleans. Who opens the way, who opens the gate. We honor all our students, Senteros, Babalawos, Ianipas, Tiyamis, Egus, Egungus. We honor you here in this place, St. Louis Cemetery number 1 today. We give reverence to your ingenuity, to your survival, to your strength, to your business sense, to your creativity, to your healing hands. In the name of Yvette Johnson, who is today celebrating her birthday, and we give thanks for her.
Ashe.
We give thanks for her ancestors. We honor Broomfield, we honor Smith, we honor Jones, we honor Gentos, we honor Martinez, all in the name of the most great. You tilt the bottom forward a little bit. I would like to give thanks and reverence to Shauna Nunez, for without her efforts in this thesis, just like old Mammy used to make, reinterpreting New Orleans African-American praline vendors and entrepreneurs. Her tireless efforts, study, research cannot be overstated. Women commonly sold goods on the streets of New Orleans throughout the city's colonial and antebellum history, forming a significant presence among the city's marketplaces. They sold various food items, which included coffee, collars, and pralines. Perhaps the most popular of the African-American street vendors was the praline woman. They attracted the attention of visitors as well as residents. Despite the popularity of these streets, the highly visible and enterprising praline vendors were simultaneously celebrated and caricatured by white observers who depicted them as mammy figures not only in store advertisements and logos, but also in everyday annotations. After emancipation, the selling of sweets became a time-honored way of earning a small but honorable living. That is a quote from Jessica B. Harris, The Welcome Table, African American Heritage Cooking. During the early 1900s, a praline vendor named Mary Louise served as a regular presence on the campus of H. Sophie Newcomb College in New Orleans. She typically stationed herself at the front gate asking, "You want praline?" The faculty, the students, and all passerbyers supported her. Sometimes she would not have to ask because crowds, which often included Newcomb College President V.V.B. Dixon, would flock around her to purchase her delicious pecan-filled treats. She always sold all of her pralines before the end of the day. Known around campus as the Praline Mommy or Mammy, Mary Louise cooked large batches of candy each morning in the kitchen of her St. Antoine Street home. An enterprising woman, she made sure she had several variations of pralines. She sold not only traditional pecan pralines, but also several other varieties including peanut, pink, and white chocolate. Her office extended beyond the Newcomb and Tulane campuses. Mary Louise also sold pralines at school-related events. In November 1900, when Tulane's football team played Louisiana State University, the Newcomb administrators told the students, "Girls, save up your nickels. Pass by Mammy without looking at her and her pralines, for Tulane is to play LSU." When Mary Louise died, her daughter Azili became the Praline Mammy, who sold the confections to Newcomb and Tulane students. A white woman once offered her $5 a day plus expenses to make pralines in her kitchen in order that she could give the candy as Christmas gifts. Azali decided to decline her offer. Perhaps the notion of working in a white woman's kitchen was a bit off-putting for her, or possibly the self-determined Azali generated enough income that she did not need the additional revenue. Another sign of Azali's independent streak is captured in a newspaper account that stated if the Newcomb girls bothered Azali too much, she would leave the college craving for sweets for a week until she considered them punished significantly. Like the many black women who made a living as washerwomen in the South after emancipation rather than as domestic servants, Azali may have prized her status as a self-employed person, free from the surveillance that working in white households brought in. Her independence reminds us of the washerwoman described in Tara Hunter's study of 1800s and early 1900s Atlanta. Azali too sought to achieve freedom, equality, and a living wage against tremendous odds. And like her mother, Azali did not limit herself to college campuses. She stationed herself in front of the St. Charles Hotel, selling her sweets to New Orleans visitors. Azali's basket of lusciousness drew tourists as thickly as flies about honey. Though Mary Louise, Azali, and many other entrepreneuring women and men took to the streets to sell pralines in an effort to support themselves and their families financially, they were not viewed as businesswomen and men. They were instead stereotyped as mammies. This is evident from the numerous newspaper articles, short stories, and drawings referring to them as Praline Mammy. Dating back to 17th century France, the praline was named for Marcel de Plassin Praline, who suffered from indigestion and ate almonds to alleviate the pain. His butler suggested that he cover the almonds with sugar. Sugar-coated almonds soon became a treat in France. The French settlers of Louisiana brought the praline with them. More than simply vending sweets, African American women also were responsible for the creolization of the praline, which continued to be sold in France as sugared almonds. African American cooks replaced the almonds with pecans, which were abundant in New Orleans. They also added large amounts of Louisiana sugar as well as milk to thicken the candy. Therefore, the culinary genius of African American women created the New Orleans praline as we know it. The candy held very different meanings for the customer and the vendor. Pralines, as white consumers often referred to them, were a treat. They symbolize a piece of the Old South, lovingly prepared by someone depicted as a faithful mammy. Generally known as pecan candies or pralines by African Americans, the candy represented a path to economic freedom and additional income as well as a treat. Mary Louise turned over to her daughter what can be described as a family business. Instead, white commentators praised the candy, typically reducing the women to demeaning caricatures. This thesis examines the history of entrepreneurship long hidden behind the mammy image during the antebellum and Jim Crow eras. The study also surveys the predominance of praline street vendors in New Orleans from the colonial period until the rise of early 20th century praline shops that marketed the mammy images to tourists while employing African American candy makers in commercial kitchens. It then considers the return of more prominent entrepreneurial role for the African American praline vendor in the latter part of the 20th century. And of course, that tradition continues today and was also supported by the presence in Congo Square. The tradition of African Americans selling goods in the New Orleans community dates from the colonial period. Enslaved Africans initially took it into the market economy to provide financial relief to their masters, to earn additional income to provide their own food, clothing, and shelter. While New Orleans was under French rule, the Code Noir was established in an effort to control the slave population. Article 5 of the Code excused slaves from work on Sundays. As a result, slaves used this day for their